Hey everybody, and welcome to a new thing here on Games According to Jaymz called Games According to Jaymz Spotlight. Now, these shouldn't end up too long, I hope, because the point is for them to be a bit shorter than a regular episode, or maybe closer to the length of a shorter episode. And what this is going to be is something I can do a little more frequently, so maybe a couple a month versus a single episode of the normal Games According to Jaymz content. But what it is I'm going to take a single thing out of a game, be it a mecha or a starfighter, ship, tank, character class, potentially a weapon of some kind, and focus just on that, like a brief background of what it is versus how it works within its primary game setting. And by that I mean, for example, if I decide to do a CR-90 Corvette, or known as the Carillion Corvette, I'll give a brief background on it, and then how it works within the primary current game of Star Wars Armada, or perhaps a character class like the Juicer from the Rifts RPG, or like I'm about to do today, I am going to be talking about the Timberwolf Battlemech, also known as the Mad Cat from Battletech. So with that said, how about we just get into it and see how this goes, and see how it comes across, and if anybody likes it. So the Timberwolf Battlemech was a heavy clan omni-mech, used a lot by Clan Wolf, but used by most of the clans. And the thing is, an omni-mech is a style of mech that was pioneered by the clans well before they ever reappeared in the Inner Sphere. The whole point of it is to allow an easy changing of weapons and equipment, which then in turn allows mechs to play a variety of roles based on what equipment they may have. Now, in the case of the Timberwolf, it was produced initially in the 2940s, so about a century before they ever appeared in the Inner Sphere. Now, one of the things with this mech, however, is it uses a number of advanced technologies. It uses an XL engine, it uses endosteel, it uses ferrofibrous armors, which all give benefits of lighter weight for the same amount of power, internal structure, and armor coverage. Now, the only thing is, these technologies are bulkier than the normal technologies. So it does sacrifice internal space and such in a way that it prohibits using overly bulky weapons. In the case of Battletech, weapons like Gauss rifles, AC-10s and 20s, those are some of the bulkier weapon systems. Now, the other side, though, with this savings in weight, this mech particularly uses over 35% of its weight, being a 75-ton mech, dedicated to that weapons and equipment usage, like sensors, targeting systems, all that. Now, in my opinion, the complete package, it makes it the blueprint by which all other heavy mechs should be measured. Now, the thing is, now, while others of its class, particularly in the 75-ton range, they may have more weapons, or they may be faster, and armor-wise, I don't think anything has as much armor, but the balance of speed, armor, and firepower this mech can carry, I don't think anything really matches it. It basically outclasses the majority, if not all, comparable mechs contemporary from the Inner Sphere, especially at the initial invasion, but still almost as much once the Inner Sphere got access, or reacquired access, to Starleague technology from the Grey Death memory core. Now, how this affects gameplay, well, I'll start with Game of Armored Combat, also known as Total Warfare, or to older people like me, classic Battletech. The combinations of speed and firepower really makes this mech a cut above everything else. Its speed makes it on par with pretty much almost anything in the heavy class, it makes it faster than many things in the assault class, and it will even keep pace with several things in the upper end of the medium weight class. Its armor, same thing. Its armor is on par with anything within its own class. It's more armored than some assault mechs, especially the low end ones, and again, easily outclasses mediums in that regard. Now, and the same thing with this firepower. Like it's an assault. To me, it's an assault mech without being an assault mech, really, in regards to armor and firepower. But the thing is, this shows. If you're just throwing mechs on the field, nobody's going to care one way or the other. But there is a battle value system in use. There's battle value and battle value 2.0. In both cases, its battle value shows the quality of this mech compared to others. Because, you know, if you're playing Inner Sphere, there's a lot of cases where you could field 2 assault mechs for the same battle value of 1 Timberwolf. Now, that Timberwolf probably still has a decent chance of success against those mechs, but it's going to be tough. So it does show in that situation. Now, with it being an Omni mech, the variety of configurations allows you to play many roles with this unit, from a close range skirmisher with, you know, like shorter weapons like pulse lasers or SRMs and things along those lines. But the next time you could equip it as a long range support mech with LRMs and, you know, like AC2s and things like that, that'll hit longer range and keep the enemy at distance. But it lets you do everything in between too. Like, you can equip it to be an urban fighter. You can equip it to be a direct energy or direct weapon, long range, just assault the crap out of you with, again, with like ERPVCs and large pulse lasers. So it does let you do almost any mission available, especially with its the speed it can travel at. It lets you do a lot of the missions that you might put a medium in. So in that case, it's actually a really good thing. Now, like all Omni-Mechs, there is a default configuration or prime configuration. And in the case of the Timberwolf, that its combination of LRMs, lasers, and machine guns allow it to engage at any range with sufficient punch that any opponent of it should be wary. Now, again, like I said, it can keep pace with most things, and it can take a good beating, even if outnumbered too, before having to withdraw or winning. And that's the thing with the Timberwolf. It's one of those mechs that you can, if you put a full star of Timberwolves on the table, yeah, they're going to wreak havoc, just because fast, tough, and will punch you right in the mouth kind of thing. And that's in Game of Armored Combat. Like, that's a lot. It's the game itself is so much crunchier, we'll say, or a little more detailed in how you handle everything, that it makes it even tougher with, it's got armor everywhere. Like, it's not one of these things where it's armored in certain locations more than others. It's evenly armored and just nasty to deal with. Now, on the flip side, we have Alpha Strike, the streamlined, larger scope of battle game for Battletech that significantly streamlines weapon damage and movement and armor or structure, but not to the extent that it's a problem. So it keeps a lot of the flavor of Game of Armored Combat, right? So in that case, everything I said above applies equally to this mech for Alpha Strike. However, there is one big difference. One of the things in Alpha Strike, or one of the major things in regards to a mech's capabilities, is that they treat endosteel structure a little differently, in that it's a lighter weight and whatnot. So what they've done is, once the armor's gone, endosteel equipped mechs are actually more fragile once you remove their armor. I think it's roughly half the internal structure points in Alpha Strike compared to a non-endo steel. So while that makes the mech a little more fragile, it will also make you probably, you know, a little more wary of doing certain things. But in the end, it still has a lot of armor. It still has that speed. It still has that firepower. Excuse me. And in my opinion, still ranks it as one of the best, or in this case, size 3, because best heavy mechs, but in Alpha Strike, they go by a size. So size 3, it still makes it one of the best games in the mech, or in the game. Excuse me. One of the best mechs in the game, be it Alpha Strike or Game of Armored Combat, regardless. Now, like Game of Armored Combat, however, there's a point value assigned to mechs, and it definitely shows its quality in regards to its point value. Because again, there's some assault mechs, you can field like 2 of them versus the Timberwolf, and how it's easy to field like 5 light mechs or size 1 mechs against a Timberwolf. Timberwolf will probably come out on top, but it's going to be beat up even against 5 lights, because they're harder to hit. They can do enough damage in combination to be a serious threat. And that's where the point values and balance of such come into play. But overall, this mech is arguably the best in the game, and it shows just in its stats and everything else. So in the end, my personal opinion of this mech, it's literally my favorite mech in the game. I've had multiple characters or created multiple pilots, and if I'm playing clan, I'm always going for a Timberwolf because it's just so effective. And frankly, in my opinion, it is the best all-around ton for ton battle mech in both games. This mech is literally the definition of being all about quality over quantity, and it shows. And frankly, it's a great mech. And the funniest thing with the mech, this is aside from everything in the gameplay, the funniest thing with this mech is in universe, early on, their targeting systems of the inner sphere couldn't identify it because it looks like a hybrid between a catapult and a marauder. And that's how they actually essentially came up with the identifying moniker for it in the inner sphere of Mad Cat. So there's a lot of little neat things there, and it's been the forefront of clan Omnimech design since the clans were introduced, and it has had a number of derivatives and variations created over the years, and it's still a fairly effective and prominent mech even a century after the clan invasion in the mid-32nd century. So it's a great mech. I love it. It's my favorite. I almost never create a clan force without at least 1, possibly 2 or more in it, because it is just so effective. I'd rather spend the extra points to get them and then use like lighter units as flanking units to do other things. But that's the spotlight on the Timberwolf. I hope this format becomes a regular thing, and that you all enjoy it. So with that said, I'm Jaymz. This is Games According to Jaymz Spotlight on the Timberwolf, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.